I am 35 years old. 3 weeks ago, doctors found a large kidney stone in me, measuring 8 millimeters. It had completely blocked my ureter, which led to the development of hydronephrosis. This meant that the organ was beginning to swell due to the inability to drain urine. The urologist warned, if surgery is not performed within 2 weeks, the kidney could be damaged irreversibly. The cost of the procedure, considering my insurance, was about $12,000. The doctor insisted on performing the surgical intervention as quickly as possible. My wife and I had an emergency fund in a separate savings account, where we had $15,000. Even though the account was joint, about 90% of that amount I had saved myself over the previous 5 years. My wife is 33 years old. She earns a good living, but she is used to spending almost everything down to the last dollar. I always tried to save money for emergencies, such as urgent medical care. In the evening, I told my wife that I had scheduled the surgery for the following Friday. I said it would cost us $12,000, but the remaining $3,000 would be enough for the first while. At that moment, her expression literally changed. It turned out she had emptied our fund. She had given $14,000 to her sister to organize a dream wedding. The venue required full prepayment, and her relative did not have enough funds. My wife stated that she could not let her down, and simply gave her the money as a loan, which would supposedly be repaid after the honeymoon. The wedding was supposed to take place in 2 weeks. My surgery was scheduled for 6 days before that event. My wife suggested that I wait until her sister returns the money to have the surgery later. I tried to make her understand that this was not just mild discomfort. I was passing blood, had sudden spikes in fever, and attacks of pain that literally made me fall to my knees. The doctor made it clear that delay could lead to kidney failure. However, my wife accused me of being overly dramatic. She kept saying it was just a stone, which people live with for years, and that her sister's wedding was a unique event. She called me selfish and stated that family should come first. According to her, her sister had been preparing for the celebration for 2 years and could not lose the deposit for the venue rental. When I protested that she had disposed of such a large amount of money without my consent, she replied that she did not need permission to help her relatives. On Thursday morning, my condition deteriorated sharply. I was taken to the emergency room with a temperature of 103 degrees Fahrenheit, 39.4 Celsius. Uncontrollable vomiting began, and the pain in my back became unbearable. I was immediately hospitalized. The diagnosis was frightening: sepsis. The infection from the blocked kidney had entered my bloodstream. That same night, emergency surgery was performed, after which I spent 3 days in the intensive care unit. The kidney was saved only by a miracle. The final bill for the treatment came to $47,000. Considering my insurance, I had to pay $18,000 out of my own pocket, because the terms for emergency hospitalization were different from planned ones. My wife visited me only once. She brought cheap flowers and said she was glad I was recovering, but immediately added that I should not have exaggerated the situation about my health so much. She was worried that this situation was creating unnecessary stress for everyone before her sister's wedding, which was supposed to take place in 2 days. When I asked where we would get $18,000, she replied that we would figure something out, like arranging an installment plan. She insisted that the main thing was my health, while completely ignoring the fact of the theft of our joint savings, which nearly cost me my life. When a nurse overheard our conversation, she looked at me with undisguised sympathy. My wife stayed in the room for only 20 minutes and left, citing the need to attend the rehearsal dinner. Right from the hospital bed, I called a divorce attorney. I explained the situation, provided bank statements showing the withdrawal, and screenshots of messages where my wife admitted taking the money without my knowledge. The attorney informed me that we could file a lawsuit based on financial infidelity and possibly hold the sister liable for the unlawful appropriation of funds if she knew the origin of the money. I signed all the necessary documents on a tablet. The divorce petition was filed on Friday morning. Also, my lawyer drafted an official demand to my wife's sister, ordering the return of $14,000 within 10 days, under threat of legal prosecution for fraud. The divorce papers were served to my wife right at the wedding venue on Saturday afternoon, in the midst of the ceremony preparations. My phone was blowing up with calls. My wife screamed into the phone, accusing me of ruining the celebration. I calmly replied that she had preferred a party over my life, so our marriage was over. She claimed I had planned everything specifically to spoil her sister's celebration, but I was just processing paperwork while she was having fun at the dinner. I added that on Monday, her sister would receive an official demand for the return of the money. Later, she called back in tears, begging me to withdraw the petition and promising to fix everything. But I was adamant. She had chosen her sister's interests while I was literally bleeding and losing an organ. I blocked her number and asked the hospital staff not to let her in to see me. 3 days later, I was discharged. I am now recovering at my brother's place. The wedding ultimately did not take place. As soon as the venue management learned of the legal dispute concerning the funds used to pay for the rental, they suspended all services until the conflict was resolved. Their contract had a clause about disputed payments. My wife's sister went into a panic and started calling my wife. She tried to contact me through my mother's phone. She demanded that I withdraw the lawsuit, claiming the money had already been spent on non-refundable deposits and could not be returned. She accused me of ruining her younger sister's life. I replied that she had helped ruin my health, so we were even. My wife tried to justify herself by saying she did not know how serious my illness was because she herself had lied to her sister, calling the surgery a simple routine procedure. I just emphasized that now they both would have to face the consequences of their actions in adult life. The wedding had to be postponed. My sister-in-law managed to negotiate with the venue owners. They agreed to hold the date for 90 days if she could confirm the legitimacy of the payment. In practice, this meant that I would have to withdraw the lawsuit, which I was not going to do. Soon, my mother-in-law called me. I answered only because the number was unfamiliar to me. She immediately demanded that I stop this madness. She said her daughter was devastated, and her other daughter was hysterical. In her opinion, I was destroying a family over money, the very $14,000 that had been stolen from me while I needed urgent surgical intervention. She insisted that the money was not stolen, just borrowed, because relatives must help each other out. I objected. In that case, the family should have helped me pay my hospital bills, instead of spending my money on a banquet. She said a wedding is a sacred obligation. I replied that marriage is also sacred, but her daughter broke that vow when she put her sister's celebration above my life. My mother-in-law accused me of being vindictive and cruel. I made it clear that mistakes have consequences. When she started threatening me, I reminded her that I had bank statements, messages, and all the medical documents. My lawyer would only be happy for the extra billable hours. She muttered something about family values, but I cut her off. Real relatives do not leave a person in septic shock over a deposit for a hall rental. I ended the call and blocked that number as well. Meanwhile, my wife moved in with her sister. The two of them now rent a one-bedroom apartment, as they cannot afford anything else. All of my wife's income now goes toward paying off credit card debts, which she emptied in attempts to salvage the situation. She was paying contractors who refused to return the money and covering her sister's rent. Later, she tried to access our joint account, but discovered that I had already visited the bank. The lawyer advised me to immediately take my share and close access. In most states, you cannot completely empty a joint account without legal consequences, so I withdrew my 50% and transferred it to a new account in my name only. I left her half untouched. She called this financial abuse, but my lawyer described it as asset protection during the divorce process. The final verdict will be made by the judge, but it is unlikely they will side with someone who has already squandered the emergency fund. The divorce is moving quickly. We have no children and no shared real estate. The apartment lease is only in my name, as she moved in after the wedding. Only some assets remain to be divided. Her representative insists on alimony payments, while mine demands compensation for the stolen funds. We will see who prevails. The main drama unfolded this week. My sister-in-law showed up at my brother's house, where I am temporarily staying. I have no idea how she got the address. I was lying on the sofa, still recovering, when my brother opened the door. She demanded a meeting with me, claiming it was vitally important. I shook my head, and my brother tried to close the door, but she stuck her foot in. She begged for 5 minutes and promised to return the money if I withdrew the court petition. This got my attention. I slowly stood up, wincing in pain. I asked if she was ready to return all $14,000. She replied that she could pay $8,000 right then, and the remainder within 6 months. So, she could not return it all at once. She complained that the lawsuit was ruining her life. The venue was not cooperating. The groom's family was asking uncomfortable questions, and his mother considered her financially unreliable. I confirmed that taking other people's money for a party is the height of irresponsibility. She burst into tears, assuring me she did not know the medical purpose of those funds. She claimed my wife had told her it was just extra savings. I asked why it did not surprise her that someone would lend $14,000 interest-free. She sobbed, saying she took it as generosity and thought we were rich. We had been comfortable until she appropriated our emergency fund. She swore to repay everything if I stopped the litigation. I asked where she would get the remaining $6,000. She explained that the groom and her parents would help, and that she herself would get a second job. I asked if her future husband was aware that her sister had let her own husband reach a critical condition just to pay for a venue rental. She was crushed and tried to defend her sister, but I reminded her of her own words. I was directly told that surgery could wait until after the wedding. I demanded the full amount of $14,000 immediately, or the case would proceed. My medical bills do not adjust to her wedding schedule. She left in tears. My brother called my actions harsh, but I reminded him that because of her, I ended up in a hospital bed. Actions always have consequences. 2 days ago, my wife's lawyer sent a draft settlement agreement. She demanded 50% of all marital assets, half of my retirement account, and $2,000 per month as alimony for 2 years. She also wanted me to drop the lawsuit against her sister and split the medical bills equally. This seemed absurd, given that she was the cause of them. My lawyer put forward counterclaims. Division of assets minus the $14,000 stolen from the fund. She must return her share, $7,000. No alimony, due to financial betrayal. She pays 75% of the medical expenses because her behavior triggered the crisis. The lawsuit against the sister will proceed regardless. No one wanted to compromise, so we headed to court. The lawyer warned that the outcome might be a compromise. I might have to give up part of my pension, and the bills might be split equally. However, the fact of the theft of money is documented, and that is a strong position. The lawsuit against my sister-in-law is separate from the divorce. Her lawyer offered to pay $8,000 over 12 months, but we demanded $14,000 plus interest and court costs within 30 days. They could not meet those terms, so we are preparing for trial. Since the amount exceeds $10,000, the case went to the district court. This is more expensive for both sides, but I intend to recover the full amount and damages. My ex-wife sent a final message from a new number, accusing me of ruining her life. I replied that she ruined my kidney, and I only postponed her sister's wedding. 6 weeks have passed. The court hearings for the divorce and for the lawsuit against my sister-in-law fell on the same week. It was a complete mess. The divorce concluded first. The judge, a woman around 60 years old, looked extremely tired. My wife's lawyer tried to portray me as a cruel person, punishing a wife for wanting to help her relatives, and showed my harsh messages. My lawyer presented bank statements, medical records, and correspondence where my wife admits taking the money and demands postponing the surgery. Also attached were the hospital bills and confirmation of sepsis. The judge asked my wife if she had taken $14,000 from the fund for her sister's wedding. She confirmed, but claimed the situation was not urgent. The judge sharply cut her off, pointing to the documents about septic shock and emergency surgery to save the kidney. By law, that is exactly an emergency situation. My wife cried, claiming she wanted to help her sister and was going to pay it back. The judge remained unmoved, noting that the sister was the one planning to repay the money, not her. Ultimately, it was decided. Assets are divided equally, but taking into account contributions to the emergency fund. I had contributed about $13,000 over 5 years, she about $1,000. The wife is obligated to repay her share of $7,000, which will be deducted from her portion of the assets. Alimony was denied. Each pays their own legal fees. Medical bills were split in a 60-40 ratio, with the larger portion to be paid by her, due to her contribution to causing the situation. The judge emphasized that the wife had staked her husband's life and lost, and now must face the consequences. I felt only emptiness. My wife left the courthouse without even looking at me. I received 60% of the assets, not a large sum, but I kept my pension, and she ended up owing me about $3,500 after all offsets, plus $11,000 for the treatment. The divorce is officially finalized. The trial against my sister-in-law took place 2 days later. She appeared with her fiancé, who looked extremely depressed. Her lawyer tried to argue that she did not know the origin of the money, so her actions did not constitute fraud. However, My lawyer presented messages in which my wife advised her sister not to worry about repaying the loan quickly, proved that my wife intended to give these funds as a gift, not as a loan, and that she did so without my legal consent. During the proceedings, it also emerged that the sister had sent my wife a message, asking whether my name would appear in any claims, and whether I agreed to this. My wife then replied that I would change my mind once I saw how happy she was. So, you still doubted whether this money was given to you for free, dear sister-in-law. I just wanted to verify that fact, but you accepted the funds, regardless of your existing concerns. Your sister, who did not have sole authority to dispose of the fund, said everything was fine. Did you try to obtain confirmation from the second account holder? No. Thus, you took $14,000 from a joint account without ensuring the consent of both parties. The defendant's lawyer tried to intervene with a technical argument about married couples and joint assets, but the judge did not accept that position. Joint property does not give one spouse the right to unilaterally give away family funds without the other's knowledge, especially when those funds had a designated purpose. The plaintiff has documented evidence that the emergency fund was discussed in the family as an untouchable reserve for emergencies. The defendant's sister violated that agreement. The defendant herself accepted the funds, having reasonable grounds to believe they were not given voluntarily. This qualifies as conversion of another's property. The court ruled in my favor, $14,000 plus court costs and 6% interest from the date of withdrawal. The total amount came to $14,340. My sister-in-law burst into tears right in the courtroom, and her fiancé despairingly clutched his head. The judge approved a payment plan of $400 per month until fully paid, starting immediately. In case of missed payments, wage garnishment was authorized. The lawyer asked for 30 days to appeal, to which the judge agreed, but emphasized that payments must begin regardless. If the appeal succeeds, the money will be returned. If not, payments continue. They did not file an appeal, as they cannot afford it. Outside the courthouse, my sister-in-law's fiancé approached me while she continued crying off to the side. He said this ruling would ruin her, but she took $14,000 that did not belong to her. He tried to justify her by saying she did not know the money was meant for my treatment, but she did not even ask. That is not my problem. They were planning to get married next month in a simple civil ceremony, but now they cannot afford even that. They should not have spent $14,000 on a venue rental that was beyond their means. He got angry and asked why I could not just leave them alone after winning in court. I replied that his fiancée had helped destroy my health. Because of her sister's actions, I nearly died, spent 3 days in intensive care, and suffered permanent kidney damage. I am still in pain and will be paying medical bills for years. It is strange to paint me as the villain for wanting my own money back. He had nothing to say. Later, my wife wrote to me from her mother's phone, and I immediately blocked that number. She accused me of ruining her sister's life and making her fiancé doubt the marriage. I did not reply, but I thought to myself that she destroyed my kidney, and I only ruined their wedding budget. That is a fair exchange. 3 months have passed since the court rulings. Time to sum up the final results. The payments of $400 per month have started, although my sister-in-law is struggling to make them. She got a second job. Her fiancé ended up leaving her. It turned out that the news of the theft of $14,000 and the subsequent lawsuit was the decisive factor for him. Financial responsibility matters in a relationship. She now lives with my ex-wife in a 1-bedroom apartment. 2 grown women in 1 room. Sounds cramped. Sometimes their mother also stays there when she wants a break from her husband. My ex-wife paid her portion of the compensation in 3 installments. However, her share of the medical bills, $11,000, is now being paid to the hospital on a schedule, $200 a month for the next 4.5 years. I hope her sister's wedding memories were worth such sacrifices. After the divorce, she tried twice to reach out. First through a mutual acquaintance, suggesting we talk like adults. I sent word that we already talked like adults in court, in the presence of lawyers. The second time, she came to my new house. I do not know how she got the address. I suspect her mother helped. I did not open the door. I simply called the police and reported trespassing. The officer explained to her that I could obtain a restraining order if the visits recurred. I have not heard from her since. As for my health, my kidney is permanently damaged, with about 40% loss of function. My other kidney is normal, and I can live a normal life with 1.5 kidneys. but this damage could have been avoided if the surgery had been performed on time. The doctor confirmed that the delay cost me half the function of that organ. At least my sister-in-law got to see her dream venue before losing everything. Financially, things are stable, though not easy. The divorce and lawsuits cost me $8,000 in attorney fees. Part of that was recovered, but the net loss was about $5,000. The remaining medical bills, after all payments and insurance, amount to $7,200. I am paying $300 a month. However, I kept my retirement savings, my job, and my sense of self-respect. At work, I was supported. My boss, after hearing the whole story, even bought me lunch. My new apartment is small, just one bedroom, but it is mine alone. I got a cat and named him Kidney. My sense of humor has become somewhat dark. I am not even thinking about dating yet. Trust issues are too severe after someone close stole money meant for my treatment for someone else's party. Therapy is helping me cope with the anger and work on not letting this situation define me. My ex-wife's relatives hate me and have blocked me on all social media, which suits me fine. My own family is completely on my side. My mother now refers to my ex only as that woman who tried to kill you. That sounds dramatic, but I appreciate the support. My sister-in-law, according to rumors, is already engaged again to someone she met at her second job. Things are moving fast for her. She still owes me $13,940. I hope her new fiancé understands what he is getting into. My ex-wife continues to blame me for everything, telling mutual acquaintances that I sued her sister over a simple loan and abandoned the family in a time of need. The irony is painful, but that is her version of reality. I have been asked if I regret anything. Perhaps I should have separated our finances much earlier, or been more strict about the inviolability of the emergency fund. Maybe I should have noticed sooner that she put her relatives' interests above our marriage. But I do not regret for a second filing for divorce from the hospital bed and suing her sister. They made their choices, and I made mine. The court confirmed I was right. You cannot steal money set aside for surgery and expect forgiveness just because of family ties. You cannot demand that a spouse postpone life-saving surgery for a wedding. If you act that way, do not try to play the victim when consequences arrive. That canceled wedding cost me part of a kidney, $8,000 in legal fees, and a destroyed marriage. But I regained my self-respect and obtained a court order for payment of $14,340. I live alone with a cat, pay my bills, and sleep peacefully knowing I protected myself. My ex-wife is crammed into a small apartment with relatives, paying for the crisis she created. Her sister works 2 jobs, lost her fiancé, and remains without the wedding for which she committed a crime. Sometimes the consequences of actions are exactly what they should be. If protecting your own interests makes you a villain in someone's eyes, so be it. This chapter of my life is over. Time to move on. And my advice, if someone asks you to wait for emergency surgery for someone else's celebration, get a divorce immediately. It will save you a lot of time and trouble. Update complete.